Hi, everyone out there. You are watching OBN Horn of Africa. This is Future Africa program, our weekly edition. In this episode today, we are going to discuss the imperialists' neocolonialism in Africa. And I'm joined by a staunch Pan-Africanist, Joshua Maponga from South Africa via Zoom. Sir, good to join me.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, can you just tell us about your profile, your career?
Those who want to know my career, you can research and Google. I'm all over the internet, but basically I think, I write, and I speak. Those are the three things I do for my life. So basically we are rewriting the African narrative, the history, and the African culture, and building towards the United Kingdoms of Africa. That is a strong cultural unity of the African people.
What inspires you to do such kind of job?
The poverty and the criminal activities of the West in terms of making Africans think that when they are democratic, that they are free. When they are using European systems, banking, education, culture, fashion, and religion, and the African people think that they can be free from the Europeans when they are still using the tools of the Europeans. So what inspires me, I would rather change that question to what annoys me. What makes me angry is when Africans like yourself put on a tie and a jacket and you look like you're a formal person. I thought you are from Ethiopia. You'll be dressed up like a proper Ethiopian to celebrate Ethiopian culture. But unfortunately, he decided to interview me like an Italian gentleman. What annoys me is when Africans are trying to look like Europeans when they are solving African problems.
Africa is a guinea pig for the imperialists. They have been doing all they could in the continent Africa. They manipulated, exploited, they did all the evil things. They have started with a trend of slave trade in the very early years, so many years back, and they changed it into another form with the name Scramble for Africa. And again, after a so-called fake independence of Africa, again, they coined a new system, which is neocolonialism. And how long would Africa go through these all adventures in changing phases of manipulation?
When you were in primary school and you're putting on those small shoes, I cannot tell you when did you stop putting on size 3 to start putting on size 5 and size 6. But as we are growing and developing, sooner or later, the quality of thinking and restrictions that have been placed on the Black people, the African people, will start to become uncomfortable. And how long will it take? It will take us education. How long will it take? It will take us unity. How long will it take? It will take us when an Ethiopian stops undermining a Somalian and an Ethiopian looks at a Kenyan and sees a brother. When an Ethiopian sees a Ugandan and sees a brother. When we stop looking at each other based on the colonial boundaries, but we look at each other as a family from Cape to Cairo, from Madagascar to Gorée Islands, where we can come together as a nation and say, we are many and different in cultures, but we share the same land. We share the same resources. We share the same environment. It will take us education. It will take us an awareness. It will take us conferences where the whole continent can start talking together. By now, I thought that Africa Union should have been able to start having this conversation, but unfortunately, they are still involved in conversing and talking with the Europeans. And their agenda has not been to unite Africans, but to continue the neo-colonialistic mentality of the Western colonialists. So our Africa Union, our SADC Union, our CODESA, including the United Nations, are not assisting Africans to find themselves. Instead, they are facilitating the robbing and the ripping and the raping of the African people in their resources still to the colonial system.
Okay. The imperialists again preach democracy and all good stuffs in their curriculum and for their nation. But paradoxically, they never need to see a democratically elected government in the continent Africa, and they would rather assign a puppet government by infiltrating in a country's sovereign affairs. How do you see this again?
You cannot sing an Amharic song in English. You cannot dance an Amharic dance to an English song. You cannot express yourself as an Ethiopian in German paradigms. For you to express yourself as an Ethiopian, you need to maximize on your language, on your environment, on your fashion, on your art, and on your culture. What am I saying? That the best way for an Ethiopian to express themselves and an African to express themselves, they need all the tools around them that will assist them to express themselves to the best of their ability, looking at their own environment. But unfortunately, the African has not been given that liberty where he must think as an African, act as an African, and fight as an African. And you are not fighting for anything. We're fighting for the same thing the white man is fighting for. That is self-sovereignty. That is fighting to be ourselves. I don't want to be a white man. I don't want to be a German. I don't want to be an American. I don't want to be an Australian. I don't want to be British. I just want to be me. And I want to be me in my own homeland. The question then is leading me to question, what do we need to do? We don't need to do anything. We just need to be ourselves as Africans. We need to realize who we are and start being ourselves without pretending to be other people while expressing ourselves.
The US always backing up rebels in Africa and confront the legitimate government. And this is what we are really witnessing in the case of Ethiopia these days. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has got so many praise from different states, and he has launched so many initiatives, and he coined a homegrown economic strategy to boost the economy of the country. And he has again built so many mega projects, but the Westerners gave him a blind eyes. Why always the Westerners dislike or disgrade such leaders of Africa? And what is expected from other African leaders and African nations at this time to stand with this grand continental agenda of Prime Minister of Ethiopia?
The Americans must be understood that there's nothing called Americans. The Americans are Europeans. In 1798, when 1756, 54, 52, when the Europeans started moving into America and they killed the Red Indians that were there, destroyed their history, and then they say they're building a democracy. But that democracy is built on murder. It is built on genocide. It is built on criminal activities to the indigenous people of America, which is a fact that is written in history. What they call America right now is not America. It is actually an abusive, rapist, murderous economy, politics over the indigenous people of Americas. When you come to Europe, Germany, Belgium, for Congo, King Leopold, for Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania, Britain, for Mozambique, Portugal, and Angola, for Nigeria, Britain. And you look at the European countries doing the Berlin Conference to divide Africa and rule it. And now you ask me the question, why are the Americans doing this? Because they want resources, they want manpower, they want labor. As long as Africa is fighting and Africa is not united, it creates an environment, number one, where they can sell weapons to the rebels to fight the other. The American economy has always survived when there is war. So you look at all the wars, from Vietnam to Taiwan, to Japan, to Africa, to Afghanistan, to Libya, to Syria, to Iraq. As long as there is war, the American government is doing well. You ask me why? Because they are supplying the weapons to the rebel states, to the rebels, so that they can fight the legitimate governments of the people. So American government and American policies, American economy is based on blood, it's based on war, it's based on division. There is nowhere in the books of history where the Europeans have supported the African democratization, the African independence, particularly when it comes to their sovereignty in terms of ruling themselves, without them putting on neo-colonialistic estates, neo-colonialistic governments, which further the advancements of the colonial economic system. So as long as there's war in Congo, America is making money. As long as there's war in Ethiopia, America is making money. Because you ask yourself one question: which state in Ethiopia is manufacturing those guns? Show me an industry that is manufacturing those grenades. Show me one factory in Ethiopia that is selling military equipment. You'll be shocked. You don't have any factory. Then you ask yourself the second question: which weapons are they using? And where were those weapons manufactured? Who is delivering those weapons? In Congo, in Mozambique, in Ethiopia, in Sudan. When you find the manufacturer of the weapons, you will understand the intentions of the war.
Can you substantiate my question by going to Ethiopia and the case of Ethiopia? What's going on in Ethiopia now?
Ethiopia has never been colonized, which is a big plus on the African continent. Yeah. Maybe one needs to find out exactly from those that are supplying the weapons in Ethiopia, what is it they want to achieve? If they should push away the government and they should undermine the legitimate government people have chosen, what is it they want to achieve? And hence I'm saying, if you can find the person who is supplying the weapons, you will be able to understand the intentions of the war. But the war is intended, firstly, to undermine the Ethiopian people. Secondly, as an access to other African countries. And ultimately, it's a business transaction. As long as people are fighting, Americans and Europeans can make money from the rebels by giving them the weapons and then putting that as debt, so that when they get in power, the same weapons that they use become the debt to which they must pay the principals who actually supported them in times of the war.
Why they still favoring the clique called TPLF in Ethiopia? You know what I mean? The US is, backing TPLF, a rebel clique in Ethiopia. And this clique is destabilizing the country these days. And still, the US is favoring this entity by disgracing the very legitimate government which elected by the people of the country. And how do you substantiate this?
You are in Ethiopia.
Yes.
I know you're a journalist, so you are used to asking people questions. But when you talk to me, you must be prepared also to be asked questions. For the first time in your life, I want to ask you the question: why do you think the Americans are destabilizing Ethiopia? No, I want you to answer, because you live there. You have the information. I want you to tell me and tell the world, why do you think the Americans are destabilizing Ethiopia? Why do you think like that? Because you're not empty. You know.
I know.
So let me hear you. Let me hear you. Educate me.
What I think is not the way you think, probably, isn't it? So
I want to hear you. I want to hear you first, then I'll respond. Yeah. Tell me, why is America destabilizing Ethiopia?
Yeah, these days we are witnessing a move which is very promising and worth mentioning after the TPLF clique was ousted by popular uprising before 3 years. And the incumbent government brought so many changes, and the Westerners, the imperialists, are against this move, and they are always pro-rebels, and they fear that the unity in the Horn might challenge their interests, in which they have been doing by infiltrating behind the puppet government they used to assign. And this is what I think, sir.
But again, while you're on that, why must Americans be interested in the unity and the stability of Africa? Has Africa ever sent soldiers to America to go and fight over the stability of America? Has Africa ever sent soldiers to fight over the stability of Europe? Why is it that the Americans and the Europeans want to become micromanagers to the African economy? That is the real question. And I know why I'm saying this, you know exactly what I'm saying, that they have an interest in our problems. They want to pretend like they're bringing solutions to our problems, when actually they are the problem to our problem. They are the cause of the problem, the funders of the problem, the weapons of the problem. And by the time they're done with us, we as Africans will have killed each other. Then you ask yourself, are the Americans interested in the stability of Africa, or they're interested in the destruction of Africa? The question is the latter. They want to destroy Africa. And why do they want to destroy it? As long as Africa is fighting, then they have access to resources.
Okay, what Africa should learn from Asian tigers? Because Asia these days, I mean, never allow the interference of the Westerners, the tiger groups, especially the Korea, the Japan, China, Singapore, Taiwan, you name it, right? What Africa should learn from this?
You must learn that Europe and America are not your friends. That's number one. Europe and America are not your friends. Number two, Africa must learn there's no person who keeps chickens as pets and they don't eat them at the end of the day. You need to learn. Number three, that every donor money comes with requirements and expectations. You must learn that as long as you are divided amongst yourselves, you will not have the Africa that you want to have. There are many lessons, but the tiger nations and the dragon nations are showing us, like China, for example, you can close your country to the whole world and build an economy by yourself and challenge the West. Right now, the West is fearing China. Why? Because they are using their own power to challenge the West. I wish Africa could learn from China to unite as a continent, not as a country, as a continent. Because as a country, you can't fight a continent. Ethiopia can't fight China. Gambia can't fight China. Zimbabwe can't fight China. South Africa can't fight China, because you are a country which is fighting a continent. 1.6 billion people in China cannot be fighting with 52 million people in South Africa. So we need to understand that there's power in numbers. And if we can put our 1.6, 1.8 billion people in Africa as a continent, one army, one economy, one education, one infrastructure, one stock exchange, one language, for communication purposes, that we can become a united continent. We will be able to fight the American continent as a continent, the European continent as a continent, the Asian continent as a continent. But as long as we are fighting as countries, we will never win the battle against continents.
Okay, another question. The Westerners use their aid as a manipulation, as a tool of manipulation. And how do you substantiate this again?
You cannot tell me that America wants to give aid to Africa when there are poor people in Brooklyn. when there are poor people in Los Angeles, when there are poor people in Chicago who are living under the bridges, and I've been there. I'm not talking from the sky. I know what I'm talking about. The Bronx, there are poor people in America, poor people in London and in Europe, poor people who are struggling even for bread and butter, who are eating in dustbins. And then you wake up in the morning as America and you want to come and give donation money to Africa to help the poor people. Like, really? If you are really interested in helping poor people, why are you not helping the poor people in your country first before you come to our country? All donor money is not donor money. It is a fishing technique where you put a small little worm on a hook, then you throw it into the river. And when the fish eats and bites the small little hook, you are able to drag them out of the water. All donor money, debt money, is criminal money intended to manage the Africans, but never to give them freedom.
What is expected from the African nation in combating the ongoing neocolonialism this time around?
The problem is deeper. Your question is quite light, but the problem is deep, because the educated African is actually a subject of the British monarch, is a subject of the European system. The fact that you went to school and you studied, you did not study African things, you studied European things. So by the time you come back to your own people, you don't come back to change your people. You come back to enforce your education that you have gathered, that is colonial education. And how can you help fellow Africans when actually your education has become a passport to escaping from being an African? So what can we do? It's education first. We need to start educating ourselves as Africans, embrace ourselves. And while you're on that, we also need to mourn the passing away of Dr. Friend Rashid, an educationist who was fighting to instill African knowledge. The passing away of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, the passing away of Magufuli, the passing away of Kwame Nkrumah, the passing away of Muammar Gaddafi, the passing away of Sankara, the passing away of Steve Biko, the passing away of Tongo Garas, real African leaders who have died in the hands of the colonialists because their ideologies have always been contrary to the popular sentiments of creating a neo-colonialistic Africa which supports European ideologies.
Joshua Maponga, a well-known Pan-Africanist, an author and researcher. Thank you for your precious analysis and precious insight on the ongoing neo-colonialism. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you very much. Next time we must talk about Ethiopia, the River Nile, between Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt. It will be very interesting to see that as Africans, we have resources, but unity remains our problem. I thank you.
A pleasure, sir. Dear viewers, you have been watching Future Africa show. Thank you for watching. Hope you had a wonderful insight about the ongoing neo-colonialism that is imposed on Africa these days. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. See you next time.